you so much for coming on today to the SLO Lounge to talk about some stuff we talked about offline with sustainability, natural resources here, and what you do here for the city of San Luis Obispo.
Great. Thanks, Nick. I really appreciate the opportunity, and thanks for inviting me on.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So were you always interested in this topic? Because I want to get into that, and then also how kind of the city really fosters an environment of sustainability and then the bigger picture of what that means for larger scales in our world.
Yeah, great question. People who do this kind of work usually do it for a reason. It's not just another job. So it's like definitely well within the old classic saying of, if you do what you love, you won't work a day in your life, that kind of thing. So I grew up in the San Francisco Bay Area on the peninsula, and one of the family traditions that my folks had is they would bring us all, me and my sister, we would go for a family hike every Sunday afternoon. And so there's really close proximity up to like Skyline Boulevard and the Santa Cruz Mountains from where I grew up. And so that means going for a Sunday hike in the Redwoods. And my sister and I usually didn't really want to go. Like we wanted to stay home and watch TV or do something else or go skateboarding or hang out with friends, whatever, But once you would go, like usually once you get there and you get started, like it's a cool moment. And then the other like part of the tradition is stop for an ice cream cone on the way home. So that always made it a little bit sweeter, for sure. And it goes back even further than that. Like we started off going camping at Calaveras Big Tree State Park every Memorial Day, even like the first year I was born. So I think really it like starts when you're really, really little and continues even if you don't know it because you're going out on family hikes and things. And it's interesting when it finally came time to like go to look at universities, I was sure I wanted to go to UC Santa Barbara, right? Like it's just, I was on the beach, like hang out. And I applied there and I got in there, but I also applied to UC Santa Cruz and I had never been there. And so I went to both campuses, and to me, like UC Santa Cruz is still like the most natural and beautiful college campus I've ever been to anywhere. I mean, there are others with like brownstones that are more classic or historic, but it's drop dead gorgeous up there. You're hiking to class in the Redwoods, and I had a view of Monterey Bay from my dorm room. And so that was an easy choice. I'm like, I'm going here, right? And when I got there, they had a program called Wilderness Orientation, like which at Cal Poly is kind of like, they have similar programs where you go backpacking for 10 days before you ever even get to school. And we carried 60-pound packs, and we rappelled off a peak, and we swam in lakes and like learned to rock climb and stuff. And I was like, and when I got to school, I already had 10 friends, so it was really cool. I wanted to like pursue that more. And then the thing that really, really solidified it for me is summer between sophomore year and junior year, I needed to make up some course credit, and I was looking through the course catalog, and there's this thing way in the back is called Sierra Institute, where you go backpacking for like 8 weeks, which in our case wound up being 8 weeks in the Ansel Adams Wilderness, just learning about John Muir and like nature philosophy and like hanging out in the Ansel Adams Wilderness. And I spent a lot of nights sleeping in my sleeping bag under the stars, feeling like this is so amazing and powerful. How am I going to figure out how to do this for like my job? How am I going to do a career in this, And it didn't happen right away, but eventually I got here and moved to San Luis Obispo and been doing this, conservation work and sustainability work now for over 20 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
You were inspired, to say the least.
Definitely.
That's awesome. And I grew up too in the Santa Cruz Mountains. So yeah, everybody should check it out there. It's an inspiring place for so many things, but especially when you can see the beautiful natural things that make up our world, and then considering how can we protect these places and make sure people can experience them for generations to come.
Yeah, that's absolutely where it's at. And I was always interested in environmental issues, but I was a little bit turned off by the more confrontational advocacy-based approach to like, the environment that I was introduced to on campus. And so when I got here and I got into grad school, I came to San Luis Obispo in the year 2000 to do a master's in city and regional planning and like environmental planning. And I had to do an internship, and I wound up starting off doing a volunteer internship at the Land Conservancy of San Luis Obispo County. And at the same time, I was sort of studying like conservation easements and stuff in school. And what just really attracted me to that model is it's like, this should be win-win. This should be like, if you think that mountain's so important, go buy it, you know, rather than being adversarial or using the legal approach. And, you know, there's a time and place for that, but that wasn't for me. I wanted it to be positive and like, you know, working with people.
Absolutely. So then after your time at UC Santa Cruz, was it something about San Luis Obispo in particular, or was it the school that you wanted to go to, or was it something about this area that you looked at and said, this is a place that also needs protection. It's beautiful already. And then you saw a place where you could fit in with your type of approach to this activism?
Yeah, another great question there. So I didn't, when I first graduated college, the only thing I really knew is that I didn't want to move home. And so I had a part-time job as a bank teller in downtown Santa Cruz, just like next customer, please, cash your check, right? You know, and then I wound up getting another part-time job at a little mountain sports shop called Bugaboo Mountain Sports, which is sort of like our equivalent of like the Mountain Air downtown. And so I made a bunch of really cool friends that also wanted to go climbing and skiing and backpacking, and I had a pro deal, so I could start to like finally afford some of that like really expensive gear that I could never afford before as a student. So that was really cool, but still I had 2 part-time jobs. I didn't have any insurance, you know, I was barely making rent. And after a little while, a job came open in the bank's construction loan department and commercial loan department, where there was like a senior loan officer, a junior loan officer, and me. And they would make the deals and I had to do all the rest. So like title, escrow, appraisal. I learned how houses get built too, which was kind of cool. Before that, I don't think I'd ever seen the inside of a wall. But what's really important is like accidentally, serendipitously, I learned real estate that way. We were doing like an escrow a week. And so fast forward, the bank I worked for got bought out by a bigger bank. And I'd been there about 3 years. And I thought, well, you know, maybe I should go to grad school. And I also, doing these construction loan inspections, I'd go out to like a new subdivision in Watsonville or something. I'd come back and ask my boss and be like, well, who gets to decide that they get to do that? And he's like, well, there's this whole thing called zoning, the general plan, planning. I'd never even heard of it. And so I started looking into it. And I started like thinking, okay, I want to go to grad school. I went on a long bike ride one day. I remember I do my best thinking on the bike. I came back and I'm like, I think actually I'm going to go to grad school, which I'd never thought about myself. So I started looking around at where there's planning schools and like, well, there's Berkeley and like, I'm not smart enough to go to Berkeley. And oh, there's UCLA and like, I don't want to move to LA. Oh, there's Cal Poly. Well, that's kind of like Santa Cruz, but different. I'll go there. It's the only place I applied. I wound up getting in. I drove down here. I'd still never been here to like look for a place. And like that day I like exited campus from Highland and just went straight and wound up at Bishop Peak and went for a walk up there. I was like, yeah, I think this is going to work. This will be all right.
That's amazing.
That's how it happened.
Another phenomenal place.
But Nick, I thought it was going to be a 2-year stop. Okay, I'm going to go to Cal Poly. I'm going to go to grad school for 2 years. And then I'm going to move to Bend or Boulder or Bozeman or some mountain town. I'm always just like a mountain man stuck in beach towns. But anyway, I met my wife, or the woman that would become my wife, and got to start working at the Land Conservancy. And so I stuck around, and then she graduated, and then it turns out it's hard to get 2 jobs in the same town at the same time. And so we're still here.
All right. Here in the SLO Lounge too. How many years later was that? What year was grad school around?
I started in September 2000, so coming up on 24 years.
Okay.
Yeah, I've lived in SLO now longer than I've lived anywhere.
Wow. Yeah. Okay. And you're still just as happy.
Still just as happy. Yeah.
So now talking about your work here with the city, because I also want the audience to kind of understand different, I guess, facets through many different episodes, kind of like how the city works, and also different stories of people who just live here, work here, different things. But when it comes to your particular work, the things that you do on a daily basis, or really just how the city is prioritizing protecting land, making sure that land is set aside to be protected, and looking at ways to get ahead of the impacts of climate change.
Right.
Can you talk a little bit? I know there's a broad question, but can you kind of give us an overview now of kind of what your role is, and then we can get a little deeper into some of those particular pockets.
Yeah, I'm happy to. Thanks. So when I worked at Land Conservancy of SLO County, we partnered all the time with the city in their natural resources program. There was a sort of legendary guy who had the job. His name was Dr. Neil Havlick, and really strong personality, and he did a lot of great work. And we partnered with them a lot, and I knew Neil and I worked with Neil, and I always thought, well, maybe someday he'll retire, and finally he did. So I came over to the city originally as the natural resources manager, where really the primary part was to protect natural resources through the Greenbelt Protection Program, through development review, through working on creek protection and stormwater and water quality, things like that. So started off, the first half or so of my time at the city really focused on that. I can't remember exactly the year, around 2008 or so, city council became really to prioritizing climate action. And there was a constituency of folks in our community that were really pushing for this. And we had a council that it seemed to be oriented that way. And really it was just becoming clear after, the wildfires and the extreme heat and the long drought we had 2015, 16, 17, that this was just going to be something that would require a whole of government approach. The city of San Luis Obispo can't solve climate change on its own, but we can lead by example and we can be part of it. And if our city does it, other cities will do it. And if other cities do it, the state will pay attention. And that's kind of how the theory of change goes. And so we added climate action into our program, and we had a chance to hire a sustainability manager, so start to build the office and a bigger staff. My coworker, Chris Reed, really had a lot of great experience. Was a really great person to be working with and still working with. And I've learned a lot from him because here I was primarily sort of the outside guy, natural resources kind of guy, but climate action is a little bit different skill set, right? We're talking about energy systems and electric vehicles and solar panels and community choice energy and things like that I didn't know a whole lot about. So it required me to develop a new skill set. And in a lot of ways that was really fun and inspiring because here I was, I'd been already doing, primarily just conservation work for 18, 20 years or whatever it was. And so now I had a chance to delve into some new topics. And I felt a little bit like, an old dog learning new tricks and things like that. And ultimately now see in a lot of ways how it all goes together, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it sounds like you have a great team where everybody brings something new and a different approach to the table to approach different complex problems.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I mean, the team we have in our Office of Sustainability and Natural Resources right now is really top tier, and it's fun, it's inspiring, we learn from each other, we debate each other, we tease each other. We all just sit in one room. Nobody has a corner office. We're all just sit at desks in a room, and it's really collaborative. And when you have a really great team, you know that it's a rare moment, and so trying to nurture and hold that rare moment close.
Oh, I love to hear
cool.
that. That's so cool. We get to hear that kind of like community aspect, and then we're gonna talk a little bit about the things that you do on a daily basis. But thinking about some of those issues that you're talking about, climate, also talking about because of drought, maybe protecting water sources. Can you talk about some of the issues that the city faces and how you kind of approach them? Because I don't know if you can do them all at once, or kind of how you take an issue and then enact policy or change to ensure that it gets solved in a way.
Yeah, I mean, I think in the big context, a lot of the bigger picture issues really are about water supply and making sure that we have an adequate water, supply system. And so I know you had a chance to meet Aaron Floyd. Aaron's a friend. He's a coworker. We talk to each other all the time about this kind of stuff. So that's really important, protecting our groundwater basin, protecting those surface water supplies that the city has. And so we're actually, I think, in a remarkably good position for a coastal California city compared to many. So that's a big part of our overall sustainability and climate resilience, right? And other big pictures now are really thinking about becoming more resilient to the impacts of flooding. I think we were really stung by the flooding that occurred in January and March last year, and we're still working on a recovery action plan to repair some of those projects and repair the impacts that we created in attending to those projects through mitigation and things like that. And then we've had some fires already. We had the fire on Cuesta Ridge. We had fire at the South Hills just right the day before Halloween last year. We had a big fire up on High School Hill that was really scary, right? So we're getting more and more involved in vegetation management. So flood, fires, drought, but also We can do a lot to protect our landscape and the natural systems that are around us through land conservation. So that's still like a tried and true method that really works. It does so many things. It's wildlife habitat, it's watershed lands, it's local agriculture, it's preventing urban sprawl. It's not to mention it's beautiful and people can go there and see it and smell it and touch it. And it's tangible, it's real, it's in front of you, right? So that I think really resonates. And it's just like when we think about all these big meta issues and problems that we're trying to tackle, if we can address more than one of them at once with one action, so like multi-benefit problem solving, that seems to be the way to go and is a smart investment to make.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And it sounds like, too, if you're approaching something like you mentioned, urban sprawl, it probably takes the collaboration with a lot of other departments in the city and county to approach something that may be solved with, more than one tool,
Oh, absolutely. When you think about climate action, climate resilience, land use planning, conservation, like it's a whole of the city approach, right? So the folks in utilities I mentioned, and our community development department and planning department and building department and public works, like, yeah, absolutely. It's necessary that we have relationships and camaraderie and collaboration with those folks, because that's the way it has to go. And, at the same time that we're interested in open space protection, we're interested in housing, right? We have a real housing crisis, and like there's big questions about, how are we going to grow and where will we grow and how tall will we grow and things like that. And so these things need to work together in tandem. And, when it's done best, and I think this is true in San Luis Obispo, that's part of a community-driven process, right?
Yeah, that's actually kind of what I wanted to talk about a little bit too. And I know this is kind of a broad overview. You're welcome to come back and talk about one for as long as you want, but
Sure.
kind of still as part of this overview, how do you kind of get buy-in from the community? Or is it just something that happens naturally that, people collectively are kind of driven to protect a place that they love for many different reasons? Or is it a lot of effort, from your office, for example, to say, this is an initiative that we as a city feel is important, and this is what we need everybody to help with?
Yeah, really good question, and lots of different little answers to that. I mean, I think the city does a really good job, I feel, in how we set our financial plan and our budgets, right? And like at first blush, maybe you think the budget is boring, but it's also like that's the way that you translate your community's hopes and dreams and vision into reality and into implementation, to take it from just a plan document to something that's actually happening. You do that through identifying that as a priority in your budget. And so we do really robust budget prioritization process that starts with what's known as the big community workshop, where we open up the Ludwig Center and people come in and they get to say what their priorities are. Then we have an online survey, and then we go out and we meet with local community groups and stakeholders. Big conversation about the budget. So that's a big, really robust community input process about what are your priorities for how we spend our dollars, and translate that into the vision that we want to see for our town. So that's a big part of it. Then from there, when we're doing a particular project, oftentimes we're, again, going to be activating our stakeholder groups and reaching out to residents, providing public notice. Maybe we put on a workshop. Maybe we put on a survey. There's a suite of different tools we use to get that community input and public participation, that sort of citizen approach there. And, ultimately, I think it goes without saying is that, we're a local government, right? And we have a mayor and city council of 5. And, hey, get out and vote.
Absolutely. What a great process too for that collaboration with not just with the people who work at the city, but also who live in the community. It's a transparent process, and people really get to feel ownership and see the things and where they can help and truly make a difference that they can see.
Yeah, I think that's right. And, one of our former colleagues, was fond of an expression, we can do anything, but we can't do everything. So, of course, we live in a budget-constrained world and a human resources capacity-constrained world. But still, there's usually room to be able to make adjustments to be responsive to that citizen input.
Mm-hmm. I was just downtown actually on Friday for concerts in the plaza,
Oh,
and
cool.
something I wanted
Another
to.
corn shuckers. How was
Yeah, it was fantastic. Do you get a chance to go to
it?
those?
I didn't, but I love to go. I'm probably going to go Friday for sure.
Yeah. Oh, what a great time. And towards the end, I definitely want to ask you about, favorite things to do in the city, community, things like that. But while there, I was with a few friends, and one of the things that I just started thinking about, because I noticed like the garbage cans, sustainable, slow, that's, you're directly involved with that through your work at the city as well.
That comes right out of our office.
Yeah. So can you tell us kind of more about Sustainable Slow as kind of an entity or, within your office, and then about some of these different things, garbage cans just being one of them.
Yeah.
But, just kind of like an overall look at Sustainable Slow. Is it again, one of those things where you see a topic or an issue and you're able to channel this entity to put funds towards solving problems? Or is it really just totally idea driven?
Yeah. A little bit of all of the above, and about working with coworkers and the leadership team and others in other departments. But, Sustainable Slow was an intentional thing that we wanted to initiate with encouragement and support from our city manager. But really, when you look across the totality of the actions we're taking that are sustainability oriented in one way or another, it's a pretty diverse suite of stuff, right? So whether it's an electric vehicle charging station or the new all-electric buses that we have in our fleet, or whether it's our policy where every new fleet vehicle that's light duty or medium duty is going to be an electric vehicle, or whether it's going to be the new big belly trash cans, which, by the way, are way more efficient, way cleaner, no smell, no flies, like way better, and branding those, or whether it's a trailhead, or whether it's a bike lane. So we wanted to really tell the story that it is part of one larger thing, and that the big belly trash can and the open space trailhead and the EV charger that you see are all part of the same platform that has the same sort of common theme, and that there's a recognizable ownership of that, a brand, if you will. We had a really cool chance to work with a local graphic designer. His name's Nick Bockelman. I really want to give him a shout out because he did the original little icons and pen and ink drawings of what that sort of scene is, and it just really, to me, just nails it. It absolutely captures what San Luis Obispo is about, where you've got that image of Cerro San Luis and Bishop Peak, just like here, right, is in that image. You've got Laguna Lake with a sailboat on it, and you've got somebody riding their bike, and you've got some friends that meet up downtown and they're shaking hands, and there's solar panels, and there's bikes, and there's electric vehicles. And then there's, even if you look really carefully, there's steelhead migrating upstream into Cuesta Canyon, and there's a hiker up there. And some of our really classic icons in terms of architecture, the Performing Arts Center, the Mission downtown, and like, to me, it just really gets it. And, getting back to what you were saying about, going downtown and going to concerts in the plaza, it's one of the things that really I fell in love about San Luis Obispo about. It's like, here we are, we have this outstanding natural landscape and all these opportunities to where you could go mountain biking or canoeing or rock climbing or go for a hike. And then in the same afternoon, you could come downtown and take in a concert and go to dinner, right? And probably do that all just walking or biking without even getting in your car. Like, to me, like, very, very, if you look around, very few towns really do all that well.
It's such a special place. And that's, again, part of the reason, well, it is the reason why I decided to move here too.
Yeah.
Just on Saturday, we played disc golf with a friend. Walked, 20 feet to the Blues game, and walked home. It was amazing.
All in your neighborhood.
Yeah, all in my neighborhood. I could see everything even all at the same time. So that was really wonderful. But Sustainable Slow, okay, that's a great overview. And how special too, again, a recognizable brand where people can see kind of everywhere in the city, there's efforts being made to sustain all of the natural things that we love and can use for education, recreation, and just living among.
Yeah, I want to really emphasize too, our Office of Sustainability and Natural Resources is a half dozen people. We don't do it by ourselves, right? So, The electric buses, like those were procured and prioritized by our transit staff. And the bike lanes that you see everywhere in town now, those are designed and engineered and come through our capital improvement plan process through Public Works. And the big belly trash cans, solid waste and recycling lives in utilities. And so really it's a whole of the city, whole of government approach. And I can't take credit for my coworkers because they deserve it as well.
Amazing. What a great sentiment. And actually, I wanted to ask you a little bit about the trash cans in particular, because I think it's so cool. And the friend who I was with, she works for the city, and she was telling me just some of the features of the trash can. I had no idea that it was like electronically had some different features on it as well.
Right. And they have internal compaction, right? So actually our maintenance folks love it because they don't have to take out the trash as often.
Yeah.
So it's way more efficient.
And then
not to mention it's a sealed system.
That's amazing too. Yeah. And it notifies when they're full. Is that, am I getting that right?
Yeah.
That's amazing.
It's a smart can.
It's a smart can. That's so cool. So that's garbage and recycling. They're together, right? So there's two different. Is that correct?
Yeah. So then you can try and make that really clear. Hey, if you stick it in this one, that's going to the landfill.
Yeah.
Heads up. Think about that one, right? And then this one, we're going to recycle.
That's amazing. Cool. So yeah, I noticed the blinking light. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is a smart trash can. Awesome. Yeah. So again, to now zoom out, I know you and I talked over the weekend a little bit about kind of some initiatives at the state level too. So can we talk a little bit about zooming out from San Luis Obispo, kind of how ideas come down the pipeline too for different, emission reduction plans by certain years, things like that?
Yeah. We have a climate action plan, and ostensibly so does the state of California, right? They have zero emissions targets, and so does the state of California. On the natural resources, open space, land conservation side, state of California is a part of what's actually an international movement called 30 by 30. And that's the idea of trying to protect 30% of our lands and coastal waters in California by the year 2030, right? And we're making real progress. And what's exciting at both the city level and the state level is that those goals and those policies are being backed by people and money and resources.
Okay. Yeah. Amazing to hear. Again, it's just like a collaboration now even further out. And I'm sure San Luis Obispo is obviously trying to lead the way, as you said, lead by example, so that other cities and communities can be inspired to do some of the same things.
Yeah, that's right. And we've seen it. Lead by example works. Mm-hmm. There's a couple of bits to that. One is we wanted to have some little thing that would help articulate what is our theory of change, right? Like I said, we can't solve climate change on our own, but we can lead by example and show a path. So that's one part of it. The other part is if we do it, then perhaps other jurisdictions will follow suit and they'll do similarly. And then the last part is it's like, hey, if there's things that we want to encourage and sort of articulate an expectation in our community of our residents, hey, here's the thing that we think that you can do then we should be doing it ourselves. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, we don't want to, have a big policy initiative and then not actually do it ourselves. Mm-hmm. So, and I think that we're moving things together.
Yeah. How can people in the community, we talked a little bit about voting is very important, and then just taking ownership over recognizing the impacts that one might have on the environment. What would you say is the best way that someone can kind of pitch an idea that they have or kind of get more involved with sustainability in the city?
Yeah, I think that that we as staff are always receptive to ideas. I think the city council is receptive to receiving input, particularly when it's at that moment where we're setting priorities and we're talking about the budget or we're talking about a new plan document or something like that. Those are really great opportunities to show up and pay attention to. And one of the cool things about San Luis Obispo is we're a small enough town that that works, right? I think probably, in bigger places, much bigger places, kind of what's the point? It's so big and so diffuse. And but here, I think citizen input and participatory democracy really works. People truly have a voice. There are some really outstanding nonprofits in our community, and I don't want to necessarily recommend one or the other, but we partnered with a bunch of them: the Land Conservancy, EcoSLO, SLO Climate Coalition, City Farm SLO, Sierra Club. The list goes on and on. So I think that there's no shortage of places that people can look to if they want to get involved with a nonprofit or volunteer in that kind of way as well.
Fantastic. So many opportunities for people with different passions to get involved with different things that, again, all have a really great positive impact on our environment.
Absolutely.
To switch gears a little bit, I want to talk to you about, again, why we love this place. I love to talk to everybody about kind of why they love SLO. Kind of maybe I have an idea that you, again, like things like climbing the outdoors. But can you tell us kind of what would make the perfect weekend, for example, in San Luis Obispo for Bob Hill?
The perfect weekend. Well, I'll start off by saying I love coffee. I love to eat breakfast. And so it's really cool that we have just really great options to go out and find a good cup of joe and get some chow. And, I think it's funny how all the really good coffee shops and all the good little breakfast spots usually have a line out the door. So apparently I'm not the only one.
Do we have a nomination for a favorite coffee shop off the top of your head?
Oh, I'm not going there.
So many.
Actually, I like to try different ones and see what's happening.
Yeah.
They all have a little bit different character and things like that. So, and I try to spread it around.
Yeah, that's good.
Like some of these local shops, like if you don't go there, they won't be there.
Yeah.
So I try and spread it around, and I definitely try and shop local and do it that way. For most of my adult life, I've been a cyclist. I got my first grown up road bike when I was in junior in high school. And so on again, off again, I've been pretty interested in cycling. But during pandemic, it's like, what am I going to do to get out of the house and get some exercise when I can't go to the gym and I can't go hang out with my friends? So I just started riding a lot. And since then, that's been a big part of it. So definitely my perfect weekend, I'm going to want to go out and get some miles in. Maybe a mountain bike ride and a road ride, who knows?
Cool.
And that could be, I love to go from the house. So that's kind of an ethic, right? It seems sort of silly to put your bike on the car and go drive to ride your bike. So I like to ride from the house and, of course, take advantage of city open space, beautiful roads like Perfumo Canyon Road, or Stagecoach Road. But it's also pretty fun to explore the county and go out to Montana de Oro or go up the coast or go out to some of the places in the eastern part of the county in the wintertime. And so check out some of those old country roads. So that's a part of it. And then, I'm going to want to come back into town and lay in the hammock. And then I'm going to want to go out and I'm going to want to see a concert. I'm going to want to see a show.
Nice.
Love to see shows at the Fremont. They're doing a great job. I love concerts in the plaza. And I in the past, we've had jazz clubs, and I'm hoping somebody's going to open a jazz club someplace. If they don't do it, I might have to do it.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Cool. There's just endless opportunities for recreation. You don't have to ever leave the county to have just everything at your disposal for fun. It's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, before we go, I just want to ask if there's anything else that you wanted to talk about. Where are we headed? Something that you're really excited about in terms of sustainability and natural resources? Anything coming up that you want the public to get excited about? Anything like that?
Yeah, thanks for the prompt. We definitely are working on a small suite of land conservation greenbelt additions, and they're probably in that sort of category where we're not quite ready to go prime time on them, but I think that folks will be pretty excited if we get where we want to go and get into contract and get things moving. So definitely we're very active with that kind of stuff. And another thing, there's a whole nother suite of active transportation and bike planning that's going on out there. Just this week, we're looking at some proposals for a public bike share program, which will be pretty cool, particularly in partnership with Cal Poly and going back and forth. I think overall for me, when I think about the unique sense of place that we have in San Luis Obispo, when I think about the outstanding scenery and outdoor resources we have here, but also needing to be serious about climate change and what can we do there. And there's kind of two different models to think about that. One is just we're going to restrict this and we're going to ban this and you won't be able to do this anymore. And I suppose there's a necessary part for that. But I think what we would really want to try to articulate is there's also an opportunity here, not only an economic opportunity, but an opportunity to, I think, make people's lives a little bit better, right? Like that electric vehicle bus is quiet. It's got no exhaust. It's really nice inside. It has Wi-Fi, or, turns out like e-bikes are actually pretty fun and an efficient way to get around. Or like an electric heat pump. Those do air conditioning too. Like it's going to be 107 this week. Wouldn't it be nice to have air conditioning? Most people don't have that. So I think there's a value add here, right? And a mentor said, when you're talking about this kind of stuff, you need to be able to say, how is it that what you're trying to propose is better than the status quo? And so that's, I think, really where the action comes from. It's another one of our sort of theories of change is like, hey, we can do this and we can do it in a way where it's better than what we have today.
Wow. That's really inspiring. I love that. It's great to, know that we have people like you on the case here in the city, really trying to make things better than even thought possible.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah. When you look at our climate action plan for community recovery, which was done like deep in a time of COVID, and we were thinking about like, how are we going to make people's lives better? How are we going to envision a future? The big overarching document is called Stories from 2035. And it's a series of 6 like stories about people imagining how their life is better in 2035 because of the actions that we took today.
Okay. Where can we find that?
Great question. How about www.slowcity.org/sustainability?
Awesome. Also, do we have an Instagram or anything where people can kind of follow along and see things day to day?
We do, Nick, but I don't have any social media of any kind at all, so sure. I'm the wrong person to ask.
I'm sure we can. We'll link it in the show notes to the city's Instagram and things like that.
Yeah.
But
it's out there. I wouldn't know, though.
That's all right. People online listening to this now, they just click on the show notes. We'll link it all. Awesome. But again, I can't thank you enough, Bob, today coming on and sharing. It's very inspiring again, and just really uplifting to know that this is a beautiful place. And with this conversation, I know it's only going to be more and more beautiful as the years go on.
Hey, thanks for the opportunity to come in and chat, Nick. It's really nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too. Yeah. All right. Come back anytime.